7 self-pleasure mistakes after 60 that silently affect mature women. Was this ever a conversation you were invited into? The one acknowledging that even in your 60s or 70s, your body continues to hold a quiet sagacity, still craves connection, and still aches for the sensation of touch. Not solely from another, but profoundly from yourself. And yet, a great many women in your age group are entirely unaware that a simple act of self-care, one perhaps practiced for many decades, could undergo a silent transformation in its meaning and its effects as you mature. I am Dr. Lily Stone. For more than 30 years, I have guided women through the natural transitions that accompany time, physically, emotionally, and intimately. Today, I wish to speak with you about a subject that few medical professionals dare to broach with openness: how your relationship with your own body, especially through the medium of self-touch, evolves beyond the age of. My intention is not to frighten you, nor is it to induce shame, but rather to tenderly provide insight, a sense of belonging, and solace. You have been assured for years that masturbation is a healthy, natural act, and something of which to never be ashamed. And that remains unequivocally true. However, the part of the conversation that was often omitted is this: the manner in which you engage with your body after 60 has greater significance than ever before. Because without the appropriate awareness, an act that once delivered calm pleasure or even a sense of confidence could gradually start to foster the exact opposite. Therefore, today, I will guide you through 5 fundamental truths concerning self-pleasure in later life. Truths that every woman over the age of 60 is entitled to hear. These are not sensational gimmicks or forbidden confessions. They are evidence-based perspectives that can assist you in preserving sensitivity, supporting your pelvic well-being, and feeling reconnected to that part of yourself which may have grown silent over the passing year. And by the conclusion of this discussion, I promise you will leave with not just expanded understanding, but a deeper well of compassion for your own being, your evolving body, and your unique journey. Before we delve deeper, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below if any aspect of this resonates with you. These discussions remain uncommon, and your voice could be the very one that helps another woman feel truly seen. Let us commence with the first truth. Secret number 1: arousal is not the complete narrative. And that is absolutely normal. A few months ago, a woman I'll call June sat opposite me during a standard appointment. She was 74 with a sharp wit and a kind demeanor, but she was palpably uneasy. Leaning in, she inquired, "Stones, why am I unable to feel the way I once did? Does this signify that I am broken?" That inquiry is one I encounter more frequently than you might imagine, and it pains my heart on every occasion, because this is what I shared with June, and it is what I wish to share with you now. You are not malfunctioning, you are transforming. You see, as women mature, the physiological patterns that previously dictated arousal start to shift. Circulation may take longer to respond. Estrogen levels naturally decrease. The nerves that are accountable for sensitivity require a little more time to become activated. What was previously an automatic process now calls for deliberate intention. And this does not imply that something is amiss. It simply indicates that the internal map has been redrawn. Regrettably, most of us were never educated about this. We were brought up to think that arousal should be spontaneous, that lubrication and intensity were the definitive benchmarks of femininity. But that particular definition is restrictive, antiquated, and frankly detrimental. The reality is, arousal is merely a single thread in a much more complex tapestry, and it is entirely normal for that thread to have a different texture as you age. Perhaps it is softer now, perhaps it requires more time. That is not a deficiency, it is a metamorphosis. I have worked with women who dedicated years to believing something was fundamentally wrong because they no longer experienced the same immediacy or response they had in they incorrectly concluded their sexuality had concluded. What they failed to grasp was that their bodies were requesting greater patience and more presence, not a diminished capacity for pleasure. And when those women ceased pursuing a memory of their past selves and started to honor their current reality, something beautiful occurred. Intimacy grew more profound, touch became more significant, and their confidence, which had subtly faded, began to re-emerge. This represents the kind of emotional reframing that truly matters. According to the North American Menopause Society, Alterations in sexual response following menopause are standard and do not signal the conclusion of a woman's sensual existence. In truth, with appropriate attention and care, many women report a more fulfilling connection with their bodies in their later years, not a lesser one. So if you have perceived things changing, if you require more time, more intention, more warmth before pleasure arrives, understand this: it is not a sign of failure, it is an indication of growth. You are not disintegrating, you are blossoming in a new season. And that leads us to our second truth. Because while we frequently consider masturbation a purely physical act, its reality is far more profound. What if I were to tell you that what unfolds in your mind and heart is just as crucial, perhaps even more so than what is occurring in your body? Let us explore that together in secret number 2. Secret number 2. Self-touch is not just physical, it is deeply emotional and neurological. A few weeks ago, I was introduced to a retired teacher named Brenda. She was in her late 70s, animated in her conversation, yet her voice dropped when she confided, "I don't feel anything anymore, not just physically, but everywhere." Initially, she presumed it was a purely hormonal issue, or perhaps related to circulation. But as we talked further, it became evident that what she was truly articulating was something more profound, a subtle but persistent feeling of estrangement from her own being. Brenda had been masturbating on an almost nightly basis, but not from a place of desire. She engaged in the act out of habit, almost from a sense of obligation. At some point along her journey, that nightly ritual had transformed. It was no longer a source of comfort, it was simply an event that happened. And here is the insight that altered everything for her. Masturbation, particularly later in life, is not merely a physical release. It is an emotional dialect, a neurological communication, a dialogue between your body and your brain. When you participate in self-pleasure with mindfulness, you are stimulating more than just nerve. You are activating neural pathways that release potent, health-promoting chemicals such as dopamine, which is linked to motivation, serotonin, which helps stabilize mood, and oxytocin, the bonding hormone. These substances do more than heighten your sense of intimacy. They also assist in regulating sleep, diminishing anxiety, and enhancing emotional resilience. However, when the act becomes detached, when it is employed solely to numb, divert, or escape, it forfeits its restorative power. This is what had transpired with Brenda. She was not doing anything incorrectly, but she was not fully present. She was not honoring the emotional dimension of her experience. So we collaborated on re-establishing that connection. We took small steps, soft music, focused breathing, moments of stillness before she started, not to make the act more ceremonial, but to help her tune back into herself. What ensued was not just improved sensation, it was a clearer mind, more restful sleep, and a surprising re-emergence of joy. Many women over 60 have dedicated a lifetime to prioritizing others. You may have raised children, cared for partners, and managed households. It is hardly surprising that your own needs, particularly the quieter ones, often went unaddressed. And when those unfulfilled emotional needs, loneliness, sadness, restlessness come to the surface, they sometimes manifest in the only truly private space you have ever had, your own body. But you are worthy of more than mere habit. You are worthy of intent. You deserve to feel as if you are not just performing an action on your body, but collaborating with it with care, with kindness, and with attention. Secret number 3. The use it or lose it principle is real, but not in the way you think. Frances was 74 when she first came to my office. After many years of widowhood, she had begun dating again, but instead of feeling excitement, she felt a deep sense of embarrassment. "My body doesn't respond," she whispered. "I thought I was prepared, but now I just feel broke." That word broken emerges far too frequently, but as we conversed, it became apparent that what Frances was encountering was not a permanent state of dysfunction, it was simply a result of disuse. Here is what every woman over 60 ought to understand. Your vaginal tissues, nerves, and blood vessels are analogous to any other part of your body. They flourish with gentle, consistent attention. When you cease engaging with that part of yourself, physiological changes start to happen. The vaginal walls may lose some of their thickness, elasticity can diminish, lubrication naturally decreases, nerve endings might become less receptive. This condition is known as vaginal atrophy, and it is not solely an issue of aging, it is often an issue of activity. According to the Mayo Clinic, vaginal atrophy impacts nearly 50% of postmenopausal women, and one of the most effective strategies to mitigate symptoms, aside from estrogen therapy, is regular stimulation, either through partnered intimacy or self-touch. But because many women like Frances were never informed of this, they assume their bodies are simply shutting down. In reality, they are often just going unused. The encouraging news is that function can frequently be restored. With time, patience, and often the aid of a high-quality, unscented lubricant, your body can start to reawaken. That is precisely what transpired for Frances. Within weeks of exploring gentle, consistent self-touch, approached not with pressure, but with presence, she observed small yet powerful transformations, warmth, sensation, and a soft return of her confidence. This is not about pursuing youth, it is about respecting biology. Your body still desires to be connected with, it still wants to function for you if you show it care. Unfortunately, there is another aspect to this that we must discuss. Because while neglect can result in a decline, depending too heavily on a single very prevalent instrument can also carry unacknowledged repercussions. It is a phenomenon I have observed more and more in recent years, and it is often invisible until one day you realize you can no longer feel what you used to. Let us talk about that in secret number 4. Secret number 4. Your vibrator might be muting your body's natural responsiveness. Barbara was 68 when she sat across from me, her expression a mixture of confusion and sorrow. I still touch myself, she explained, but the sensation is muted, as if my body is merely an observer. Barbara, like many women of her generation, had turned to a high-powered vibrator years prior. It provided the kind of rapid, dependable release that felt helpful, especially following a divorce and during long periods of solitude. But over time, something had altered. The vibrator continued to work, but nothing else seemed. What Barbara did not know, and what many women are never told, is this: your nervous system, especially as it matures, grows more sensitive to the kind of stimulation it receives. And when that stimulation is of high intensity and consistently repetitive, your brain starts to adapt, beginning to expect only that. Consider this analogy: if you only ever consume intensely spicy food, a subtly flavored dish can begin to seem bland. That is precisely what can happen with strong direct vibratory stimulation. Your body may become so habituated to that intense input that lighter, more nuanced touch, whether from a partner or your own hands, feels dull or ineffective. This is not a matter of judgment, it is a matter of neuroplasticity, your brain's remarkable capacity to rewire itself in response to repeated stimuli. And according to research published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine, the repetitive use of high-intensity vibrators in older adults can, over time, diminish genital sensitivity, particularly when other forms of stimulation are lacking. Barbara had unknowingly conditioned her body to respond to one specific thing, and the emotional impact was profound. She felt alienated from her own sensuality and increasingly uncertain about how to experience intimacy without a device. But her story did not conclude there. Together, we devised a plan, not to banish her vibrator entirely, but to lessen its frequency, reintroduce slower forms of touch, and invite more presence into her practice. Her path started with gentle textures, immersive warm water, and focused breathing. There were no expectations, only reconnection. Within a few weeks, a shift occurred. Barbara told me, I felt my skin again, not just the physical sensation, but the feeling of being alive in my own body. You see, this is not about relinquishing pleasure. It is about broadening your body's capacity to feel completely, and in many different ways. Vibrators can be wonderful tools, but they are meant to be an accessory to your connection, not the entirety of it. So if you have been using a device that feels more mechanical than meaningful, do not feel disheartened. Your body has not ceased to function. It is simply awaiting a different kind of invitation, one that is slower, softer, and more attuned to the present moment. Secret number 5. Self-pleasure can be a lifeline, not a liability. Georgia was 75, elegant and kind. Toward the end of a routine checkup, she paused. Dr. Stones, she whispered, is it still permissible for me to engage in self-touch? That question struck me, as it always does, not because of its rarity, but because of what it signifies, the immense weight of cultural silence and the shame that so many women bear regarding their own bodies, even within the sanctuary of their own home. And here is what I expressed to Georgia, and what I want to convey to you now. Yes, it is more than permissible. At your age, it may be one of the most powerful acts of self-care still available to you. Let us put the shame aside and examine the fact. Masturbation, particularly after menopause, achieves more than providing a release. It sustains blood flow to the pelvic area, which in turn supports vaginal lubrication, and tissue elasticity. It keeps nerve pathways active and responsive. It helps to prevent discomfort during intimacy. It can even enhance immune function by mitigating stress and fostering better sleep. But beyond the biological aspects, there is something even more essential. It keeps you connected to the part of yourself that still experiences desire, identity, and vitality. After her husband passed away, Georgia told me she had ceased all such activities, not just sex, but even small personal pleasures. I believed that part of my story had concluded. She said that I was no longer supposed to feel wanted. But as we began to gently explore that belief, she came to realize the truth. Desire does not simply vanish. It only softens. It waits patiently for your attention, and if it is ignored for too long, it can transform into loneliness. When Georgia granted herself permission to reconnect, slowly, and on her own terms, she did not just experience physical changes. She slept more soundly, her mood brightened, she smiled more often, not because she was chasing her younger self, but because she was reclaiming her right to feel like a whole woman once again. And you possess that right too. You have spent decades giving. You have navigated transitions, grief, menopause, and reinvention. You do not owe anyone an apology for wanting to feel alive in your own body, not now, not ever. The real secret is this: your sensuality does not have an expiration date. It undergoes a metamorphosis, and when you allow yourself to meet it where it currently is, not where it once was, you unlock a new form of power, one grounded in wisdom, gentleness, and the courage to remain connected to yourself. Closing reflection. If you have journeyed this far, I wish to thank you, not merely for your time, but for your openness, for daring to investigate a part of your health that for too long has been shrouded in silence. Because what we have discussed together, these 5 quiet truths about your body, your pleasure, and your connection to self, is not just about sexuality, it is about dignity, it is about honoring the complete woman you continue to be, irrespective of your age. Let us briefly revisit what we have uncovered. First, we discussed how your arousal patterns may shift after 60, and that this change is not a loss, but a natural evolution. Your body now asks for more presence, more warmth, more intention. When you offer that to yourself, something beautiful can open up. Then we examined how self-pleasure is as much emotional and neurological as it is physical. It is not just about release, it is about grounding, emotional regulation, and reconnection. Your body communicates not only through sensation, but through its yearning for calm, safety, and attention. We then explored the often misconstrued idea that use it or lose it is real, not as a threat, but as an invitation. With regular, gentle stimulation, you can support tissue health, circulation, and even confidence. Neglect does not mean you are broken. It simply means your body is waiting to be remembered. From there, we addressed the quiet cost of over-relying on intense tools, like vibrators, not because they are inherently bad, but because they can narrow your capacity to feel subtle, more meaningful touch. When you invite variety, slowness, and awareness, your body can begin to respond in new, often richer ways. And finally, we arrived at the most essential truth. This act, when done with care and respect, is not shameful, it is sustained. At your age, self-touch is not a luxury, it can be a lifeline, a ritual that reminds you that you are still here, still feeling, still worthy of comfort and connection. Now I want to leave you with something I tell every patient who has ever hesitated to speak up about this part of life. Your story does not conclude because you turned 60 or 70 or 85. Your desire to feel joy, to feel sensual, to feel yourself, that does not expire, it transforms. And when you approach your body with curiosity, rather than criticism, with compassion rather than comparison, you discover something far more valuable than performance. You find presence. Aging does not mean letting go of who you are. It means re-embracing the aspects of your being that still murmur, still radiate, still want to be touched, not just physically, but emotional, spiritually, completely. This is about more than anatomy. It is about agency, the freedom to explore your body, not as something to be fixed, but as something to be honored. So here is what I hope you will remember. You are not too old, you are not too late, and you are not alone. There are women all over the world, women just like you, quietly awakening to the truth that self-pleasure at this stage in life is not something to hide. It is something to celebrate with softness, with grace, and with no apology. And if this message touched something in you today, let that be the beginning of listening to yourself more deeply, the beginning of letting go of outdated rules, the beginning of asking your body what it needs without shame, without fear, because you, dear friend, still matter, and your pleasure, your peace, and your presence are still worth tending to. Now I would be delighted to hear from you. Which of these 5 truths resonated most deeply with you? Please feel free to share in the comments. Your story might just be the spark that helps another woman feel less alone. And if you are ready to continue learning, growing, and reclaiming your health with clarity and compassion, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. We share thoughtful, medically sound guidance, created especially for women navigating life after 60, with dignity and warmth. And if someone you love, a friend, a sister, a mother, needs to hear this message, please consider passing it along. You never know what a gentle truth can awaken. Let us continue breaking the silence together, because you deserve the truth, you deserve support, and most of all, you deserve to feel fully alive in every chapter of your life.